Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name's Joey Weaver. He's Mike McDaniel. Mike, we have an ACC champion. We've got playoff entrants. We've got a bowl lineup. How you doing? You want to talk some game and future games?
Clemson Tigers.
I've heard the crowd spells it really well there, actually.
C-L. Yeah, they do. I'm not going to do all that.
C-L-E-M-S-O-N. Yeah.
That's one of the craziest. When Virginia Tech, many moons ago, played in the ACC title game against Clemson. I'm not talking about the 2016 one. I'm talking about the 2011 version when I was a freshman at Virginia Tech. And I saw Virginia Tech lose at home to Clemson and then went to Charlotte in the ACC title game for a rematch. And that stadium, for as close as proximity is from Virginia Tech to Charlotte, which is about 3 hours, I could not believe it was like 80% Clemson fans with a very good traveling Virginia Tech contingent. It was unbelievable how loud that stadium was.
Mm-hmm.
And I will put up that neutral site game in 2011 against any environment I've been in, including in Death Valley, by the way, which I've gone to a game in Death Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd put the ACC title game neutral site at that time up against it. It was insane. Yeah. Clemson, unbelievable fan base. Unreal.
They don't get tired of going to that Charlotte game either. They show up every year.
No, they're pretty good at that, as we found out on Saturday night.
We sure did. Mike, we're live, youtube.com/at the ACC Football Podcast. A couple minutes after 11 o'clock, Sunday night, December the 8th. Obviously here to recap the ACC Championship. We've got a two-bid league that we're talking about. We've got some bowl lineup that we got to hit on. A lot of things to get into tonight. Are you ready to jump on in?
I am. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We could do a rowback rapid recap and see if we get that done in under 10 minutes. But maybe we just jump into the game that we got to talk about. Number 17, Clemson, 34. Number 8, SMU, 31. I feel like if you just showed up at work tomorrow morning and you saw this score, you'd think, man, that was a close game. I just don't think that score really tells the story of the game at all.
No.
Very tale of two halves kind of situation. And in a way, did you almost feel like you were watching the Pitt Clemson game again? Because Clemson gets out to this big lead and just doesn't really feel like they're being threatened. And then all of a sudden SMU comes back and starts chopping away and chopping away and chopping away. And next thing you know, SMU scores a touchdown with 16 seconds left to tie the game. We were going back and forth. Should they go for two? Shouldn't they? And pretty much all of us agreed they should go for two here. Turns out it wasn't going to matter either way because Clemson runs back the next kickoff, I think, out to about the 40-yard line. They run, one play, I think, get in line for a 56-yard field goal from Nolan Hauser at the gun. And, this game looked like it was a total snoozer, a total blowout, but some real drama built in the second half. And SMU redeemed themselves really well, I thought, after halftime. And, good win for Clemson. Hate to see SMU go down in such a heartbreaking fashion, but just this ended up being an exciting game, I think, down the stretch.
Yeah, we'll talk about the playoff later.
Mm-hmm.
But I sent a text in our group chat in the first half, and I said, man, with the way SMU looks, for lack of a better term, it's almost just like you kind of get what you get on Sunday if you keep playing like this. And, of course, SMU turned it around and had a great second half. I bring that up to say that I thought it was pretty apparent early on which team's coaching staff had been there before, right?
Mm-hmm. And
we
or the
talk
playmakers.
Well, yeah, right. And we can talk about, every team is different. And, okay, some of these players, some of them have been there before, some of them haven't, and all this stuff. We can get into all the nuances, but it was pretty apparent that Dabo had Clemson ready to go from the jump. We've been in a conference title game before. We've been in this environment before. All we do is go to Charlotte because that's really all they do. What was this, Dabo's 9th ACC title? Is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
Or
something
absurd.
Title game, yeah.
Yeah, just something absurd. This is what they do at Clemson, right? And even when they're having their down years like this year, right, relative to national title contender, we agreed this was a good Clemson team this year, basically somewhere between what they were the last couple of years and what they were when they were in the 4-team playoff. They're kind of in between that this year, right? And we all agreed with that, but it was pretty apparent to me early on that this was Dabo had them ready to go. SMU looked kind of shell shocked. Like they had a couple of iffy calls early, right? Like the first touchdown pass, obviously from Klubnik, it was a designed run play. You had an offensive lineman who was about 4 or 5 yards up the field. That could have been a legal man downfield easily. On a broken run play that wasn't. Wesco got behind the defense. Wesco's a stud, but I mean, you could put you and I could have been back there. He was so wide open, like ridiculous. I know there were a couple calls that went against SMU in this game, and their fans, I think, they have legitimate gripes about those. But I thought Clemson played a lot better through the first half. Obviously, I think SMU got it together, right? In the second quarter, I thought SMU got it together. You just can't be putting the field position thing. This played out in the first half kind of like the first Georgia-Texas game, where it felt like the entire first half, SMU was just losing the field position battle considerably. And that was my takeaway. The second half, it was more even, and I think SMU obviously got comfortable and started getting stops on defense, more importantly. And when they got the stops defensively and, you know, they were able to give their defense a breather, and they weren't pinned in the shadow of their own goalpost like they were for most of the first half, or giving the ball to Clemson at the plus 40-yard line, SMU could do a few things. I thought Kevin Jennings settled in and played really well. I thought he had a pretty rough first half. They were really giving him a lot of trouble. Offensive line of SMU was in absolute hell early in this game, and they settled in and they played well. And Jennings, once he got comfortable in the pocket, he made some big-time throws and big-time plays and got SMU back in this football game to the point where, you know, you had the opportunity to go for two in the end if you wanted to. You didn't. You kicked the extra point. Like you said, it wouldn't have mattered anyway because of what Clemson was able to do on the ensuing kickoff, longest kickoff return of the season, I think McDonough said on the broadcast, which is something. Good time for that.
Yeah.
But there was no doubt in my mind that SMU had done enough by the time we got like late fourth quarter. They had done enough to be in the playoff, right? And I think for SMU, obviously, you want to win a conference championship, and that's all you're focused on. You want to leave no doubt. And it sucks to lose. And you don't want to have that uncertainty going into Sunday. But SMU, I think, proved in the second half that they belong in the bracket and they belong among the top like 10 to 12-ish teams in the country, because you brought it up on the preview. Who are the best 12 teams this year? It's kind of hard to figure it out. It's kind of like a soft middle of the top 25, right? And I think SMU at the very least proved they're one of those teams and should be in the conversation. So they looked. I thought they acquitted themselves well in the second half. It was just they dug themselves into such a huge hole. They come all the way back, but Clemson let go of the rope a little bit, and they were fortunate. They were certainly fortunate.
Yeah, they definitely did. And I mean, again, you mentioned the game script thing, right? Like Clemson, we're less than 5 minutes into this game, and you know, poor producer Scott having the Clemson team total under 27.5 or whatever it was as his pick of the week.
I didn't do a pick of the week. I did place a wager on it though.
Yeah, personal wager. Mike, we were less than 5 minutes into this game, and Clemson was up 14-0 because of a short field, basically, and then another short field. Clemson's first 6 offensive plays, they got 61 yards and 14 points. And that's you talk about digging yourself a hole immediately. And SMU's offense is able to score relatively quickly. They're more than happy to play in a shootout if they have to. But that's a negative game script thing that doesn't help. And so you dug yourself a hole early. It definitely looked a little bit like SMU might have been a little bit, I don't know, shell-shocked, or like, you know, the moment was a bit big for them there in the first half. And, you know, and definitely they settled in after halftime. But just, I mean, they had a hard time early in this game, like really adjusting to the setting that they were in. But then, as we mentioned, I mean, they do come back. Their first drive out of halftime, 7 plays, 74 yards, touchdown. They go right down the field. Overall, in the second half, they were moving the ball. And to your point, It also felt like at the same time Clemson might have downshifted a little bit and just said, let's just run the clock out and let's just, get out of here. And in reality, SMU's gaining on you here. And I thought especially late in this game, Kevin Jennings looked awesome and was making Clemson's defense look bad. Like they could not get to him. They could not get him on the ground. He was escaping sacks and extending plays. I mean, SMU, like, I thought they were going to do it here. The way that game was going in the fourth quarter, especially. I mean, it's an interesting kind of script again of the game. I've got a buddy, I think I told you earlier in the year, I went to a wedding, a good buddy who's an Alabama fan, and he texted me at halftime, and he said, if the current score holds, and it was 24-7 Clemson, it's like, does SMU get in? It's like, I don't think so. And he said, I agree. Yeah. And then he texted me in the fourth quarter, and he said, 7-point game, does SMU get in? I was like, I think so. He's like, I think I agree. And, you end up losing by 3. But, I mean, SMU, again, they acquitted themselves well here. And this felt like a game where Clemson just got real comfortable and maybe a moment too soon. And that defense has not been as smothering, maybe, as it once was under Brent Venables and some of the dudes that we talked about a few years ago on that defense. So nearly a miscalculation that almost, it got a little uncomfortable there for the Tigers. But they do end up getting it done, winning the ACC championship yet again under Dabo Swinney.
You can't, I think as Clemson found out, you can't run out the clock on this SMU offense. They score in a hurry if they get comfortable. They started scoring in a hurry. And I agree. It felt like Clemson, from a running out the clock standpoint, probably started that a little early. They got pretty conservative with the play calling, right? Even coming out of halftime, you trade scores in the third quarter. You're feeling pretty good about where you're at, up 17, entering the fourth. And you just kind of start screwing around a little bit on offense, and you're not converting third downs, and your SMU, there was a period middle of the fourth quarter where they were really getting after Klubnik, and I was like, man, I don't know, like Clemson's offense can't stay on the field, and it seems like Jennings is now playing with some confidence. This is going to get dicey, and it did. It did, and it should have with the way SMU played and the way Clemson not only miscalculated it, but like they just flat out did not play well offensively in the fourth quarter. In particular, they just did not look very good on that side of the ball. Could not stay on the field.
Well, that was part of it. Was Clemson had an awful time running the ball in this game, and
the entire game.
It's not the first or the second time we've seen that this season. I mean, that has happened on a somewhat regular basis, but that definitely reared its ugly head here. And you talk about wanting to put a game away. It's like, it's kind of hard to do if you're really relying on your passing game to keep the chains moving. And that's a little bit of, I think, what we saw here. Just to reiterate too, I mean, SMU outgained Clemson here by like 130 yards. I mean, and you want to talk about who's the better team? If they play this game 10 times, I ain't going to tell you that Clemson's going to win all 10 of them. I don't know if they're going to win 9 of them. Like, I think this might be more of a 50-50, or SMU might even, reasonably, they were favored, and I think there might be a reason for that. Like, so, I mean, there's no real consolation being an SMU fan, being told that of, you were probably the better team and you lost. But
the consolation is you made the playoff.
Well,
consolation,
you get a good chance to prove it here in a couple weeks. So we'll get to that here in a minute. Nuke Jacket, 9 conference championships for Dabo in 15 years is absurd. Woke for, but SMU clearly the better team once they figured it out in the second half. I think that's probably right. So in a way, I mean, again, I think preseason, I want to say I picked Miami to beat Clemson in this game. So like, I definitely anticipated Clemson being here. I did not anticipate them nearly losing to SMU here. So I mean, credit to the ponies.
Curveball. I did have a Clemson future or two that hit on Saturday night. I punched the winning the conference title and making the playoff ticket, because you can't have one without the other. So I actually had worse odds at Clemson to make the playoff than I did at them actually winning the ACC title. It was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Vegas viewed Clemson as an at-large team, which, I mean, to be fair, I think Clemson played like an at-large team more so than a conference champion for most of their ACC schedule. The back half that got more dicey, right?
Sure.
So anyway, I think coming out of this, if you're Dabo, it's almost like you feel like you stole it in a way. If you're SMU, you're probably pretty fortunate to still be going to the college football playoff the way that first half went, but you crawl back into it and you tie it, and yeah, I mean it was so impressive in the second half that it left everybody in college football media and fandom on social media saying there is absolutely no way you can put Alabama in over SMU. So mission accomplished. Like,
and all that flipped within 2.5, 3 hours. I mean, in the first half, it was like, you're not getting in if this is what you got.
No,
and by the end of it, like you're saying,
that.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us thought that. I mean, we were all texting, like, there's just, look, if you get blown out of the ACC title game to this version of Clemson, like, you get what you get.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that as no disrespect to Clemson, because I think when they're firing on all cylinders like they were in the first half and like they were at times against South Carolina defensively, they are going to be, if they put it together for 4 quarters, they have a lot of talent. They are going to be a tough out if they play like that consistently. The issue is that we haven't seen it for Clemson against good teams. We haven't really had the opportunity to see them play a lot of good teams this year.
Yeah.
And they haven't been able to put it together for 4 quarters. I still think there's a chance for some growth there. Fortunately, Clemson has to play Texas in the bracket, which we'll get to in a second, which I think is a tough matchup. But, you know, I think if Clemson plays their best football, they could be a pretty tough out. So, I mean, it is no disrespect, but I just feel like SMU, with the way things were looking at the first half, not trending very well, you got to be happy you crawled back into it and gave yourself a shot.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I think that's all I've got on this game, Mike. I don't know if I feel like we could probably do this a little bit more justice, but I don't know that I have anything else that I've got to before we get into some of the playoff stuff.
No, I don't have anything either. I think the story really was, okay, SMU played pretty well in the second half. Would it be enough?
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah, for sure. Quick thing I will add in here from N. Dennis. Is Clemson better or worse than we thought that they would be this year? For me, it's no. Like we thought early in the year that they were probably better than we thought that they were going to be. They kind of broke a trend of the last few years, especially on offense. Looking back at it after 13 games, I think this is about what I expected. Was a good, competent team, but still a lower ceiling than what we saw there in that more dominant run at the end of the 2010s.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what they ended up being. I think offensively they're probably better than I thought they were going to be this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think defensively they were probably a little bit worse than I thought they were going to be. It's all relative because Clemson still has a very good defense.
Mm-hmm.
But this is probably a little bit better. I thought coming into the year, Clemson would be better than they were last year, right? So, like, relative to preseason expectations, this is about the team I thought. So I guess if you're tailoring it around that, then yeah, they pretty much exactly what you and I thought going into the year. We both said we thought Clemson would be better. They were, but it's clear there's still a half to full step behind what they were when they were competing for national titles. This is not a national title program right now.
Right.
It's just not. They're not playing like that for a variety of reasons. Now, I will say a lot of questions around Clemson lately have been around pass catchers. They got some. Like, Wesco's a stud. He has been all year. Briningstool has been as reliable as they come at receiver all year. They got some receivers now. Klubnik has improved. They struggled in the run game at times this year, but I think Maffa is a good back. So I do think offensively they're taking some strides forward, but they're still Klubnik is not Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence, and I think that's why that is as big of a reason why Clemson is not as good as they were in those title runs than anything else.
Right.
That's
right.
Pass catchers, all that aside, you don't have that top 5 quarterback in a decade on your roster like you did twice. That's significant. Yep. That's really significant.
Has a way of covering some things up, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Although, I mean, those teams didn't have that much to cover up, I don't think.
But they were so good. They were they were all so good, yeah.
Yeah. Number 17, Clemson 34. Number 8, SMU 31. That recap brought to you by Section103.com, the internet's premier place for all things wonderful Georgia Tech apparel. They got T-shirts, they got sweatshirts, they got hoodies, something for men, women, children, babies, something for the whole family. Everyone in your life that's a Georgia Tech fan, they need something from Section103.com. Once again, use promo code GOACC at checkout for 10% off your first order. They've got all the official gold, all the official word marks. I love mine. There's some new shirts that have been coming out. Keep an eye out there. Feliz Bobby Dodge shirts still in stock, I believe. If you need something for your holiday party, hurry up and get in on that. Those are going quickly. So one last time, Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. Shout out to Steven and the gang. Appreciate their support and another great season here on the Basketball Conference podcast.
Yep, absolutely. Shout out Steven.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Steven. Mike, by virtue of this game, both SMU and Clemson make it into the playoff, which I think, as we've already kind of stated here, that's the right move. That was the right move. And, I had at least one, if not a couple tweets last night that kind of caught some fire, and I've gotten some interesting replies on that tweet. But Bama fans seem to disagree. Everyone else is like, no, yeah, this is about right. I did think Greg Byrne, Alabama's athletic director, coming out and saying, like, why would we ever bother scheduling tough out-of-conference games, was like you're really just flailing looking for something here, because it's not like you played any tough ones or lost any of them this year. Like, what are we doing?
What are we doing? Right.
I don't, if you're mad that Alabama didn't make the playoff, they shouldn't have lost to Oklahoma. They shouldn't have lost to Vandy. When you lose 3 games, you get what you get. And again, for an SMU team that, and one of the other things that comes up is like, oh, well, do you think that SMU would beat Alabama on a neutral field? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because we say, oh, we got to get the 12 best teams. No, we don't. We never have. We want the 12 most deserving teams, the 12 most deserving resumes. And at some point, no, I don't know that SMU necessarily. They might. I mean, Alabama's not a complete team right now, but at some point, SMU went 11-1 in the regular season, and they were right there neck and neck in their conference title game. And if they didn't make it, this is what I tweeted, was if they don't make the playoff, we are actively punishing teams for playing in their conference title game, which is something that the committee has already specifically stated that they weren't going to do, Mike.
Yep. Yeah, it's like made for TV. So today they had, all the seeds unveiled and all the matchups. They had the one spot remaining, and let's bring this graphic up on the screen again. Who played a tougher schedule and what were the results? And it was like SMU versus Alabama, all that stuff. It's the 12 most deserving teams. There's not a single metric in my mind that indicates that Alabama is a more deserving team than an SMU team that went 11-1 and lost at the gun when a freshman kicker for Clemson made a 55-yard field goal to win a conference title. Okay, tip your cap and move on.
That's how close you were. Yeah,
you're not going to penalize a team for playing in a conference title. It would set a terrible precedent. It would lead to conferences reconsidering whether or not it even makes sense to play conference title games, which is something that ESPN certainly doesn't want. Why? Well, the TV money that's involved with the conference title games. You want these conferences now deciding that they don't want to play those games, and now it's one less opportunity per year for several conferences that the TV revenue is not going to be there for a big game that a lot of eyes are going to be on, obviously, especially in this 12-team era. No, they're not going to set that precedent. It would screw them. So this is not a surprise. It did not surprise me. I thought going into today that the committee would select SMU. I had friends I had friends of mine telling me that, oh, we've seen this show before. ESPN loves the SEC. They're going to put Alabama in. And my argument was, not this year. No, they're not going to do it this year. It would shock me if they did it this year, because there wasn't really any conceivable metric in my mind or reason to do so. If SMU got smoked last night, okay, let's have the conversation. They didn't get smoked, right? They were in that game. It's the 12 most deserving teams in most cases. In most cases.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue, right? And we've had this discussion on the podcast. Is Alabama last year more deserving than FSU if Brock Glenn is the quarterback? Probably. In a one-game sample size, probably. But not over the course of an entire season. So that's why we believe that FSU got screwed a year ago, right? That was the whole conversation.
Yeah.
If it were the 12 most deserving team, or the 12 best teams or 12 most deserving teams, hey, buddy, Virginia Tech was favored in 10 out of their 12 games this year. You could make the argument based on that particular metric that Virginia Tech is one of the best teams in the ACC. Does that mean they should have played in the conference title game based on what you saw this year if they went 6-6?
They didn't go 10-2?
They
lost 4 times as a favorite?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that we're still litigating best versus most deserving, because at the end of the day, in my mind, it ends up being the same damn thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who'd you beat? Who'd you lose to, right?
Yeah.
Alabama, congrats. Great win over Georgia. Fantastic. You can't lose to 6-6 Vanderbilt, and you can't be losing to Oklahoma like that, like a couple weeks ago. You just can't be doing it, right? And
some people saying, hey, why don't we put Ole Miss in? I think Ole Miss is probably better than Bama. Well, don't lose to Florida, and don't lose to Kentucky at home.
Mm-hmm. Bad Kentucky. At home.
And by the way, that Florida team, Miami beat the brakes off that Florida team earlier this year. So don't act like the SEC is all high and mighty and just insulated from all this stuff because, oh, well, we got this tough schedule. Like a Kentucky team that got boat raced by Louisville last week.
Right.
We got to stop acting like they're this high and mighty, untouchable thing, because clearly they're not. Your champion just needed 8 overtimes in their own building to beat a 7-win Georgia Tech team.
Right.
Don't act like you're playing some game that other teams aren't.
Just not the case this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just was not the case this year.
Yep.
Texas doesn't have any good wins.
No.
Their best win's Texas A&M, who
wasn't
not
ranked.
Wasn't ranked. It just was not the case this year, right?
Yeah.
With the SEC, and everybody loves to scream SEC bias, SEC bias. Just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a handful of very good SEC teams this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure any of them are elite.
Yeah.
Look, I'll tell you what, Georgia, I like Gunnar Stockton. I think he's a stud. I think he's going to be very good. But you have now a few weeks to prepare him, because I don't think Carson Beck is coming back based on what I saw. That looked like a torn UCL situation. That was bad, right?
That didn't look good.
Looking rough. So I mean, even with Beck, I've told you for weeks I've not been sold on Georgia's offense. I'm telling you that for a while. Texas, they have some Quinn Ewers issues. Between the 20s is okay. 20 to the end zone has been a problem. They just can't figure out a way to punch it in. I mean, that game last night was crazy. They could not score any touchdowns. It was insane.
Mm-hmm.
They just could not put the ball in the end zone. Yeah. So at Tennessee, they're either scoring 50 or they're scoring 10. I don't know what's going on there. So I just those are the 3 representatives for the FCC is why I bring those teams up. And so I think SMU deserved to be in. I think the committee got it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I tweeted this, but the biggest story today is the seeding. And that's great. That's great for the committee. That we can argue about seeding as long as we have the right teams in it. I don't care. I'd rather have the seeding argument all day long. People are saying, "Oh, Penn State benefited from losing their 2 toughest games, and now they have the easiest path." Okay, look, have you all watched James Franklin against elite competition? Let's everybody chill out. Like let's see him when he hasn't won one of those games in almost a decade. Like let's just everybody chill out with easiest path. All this there are no easy paths now. People are going to play home games and road games all the time. There are no easy paths. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of good teams. I don't know if there are any elite teams.
Yeah,
maybe Oregon, but Oregon's defense did not look particularly good last night.
Yeah.
All that to say, SMU, I think, one of the 12 best teams, 12 most deserving, however you want to couch it. They deserve to be in. They got in. No qualms. None. No qualms.
Clemson, not one of the 12 most deserving, but by the rules, they won their championship. They won the conference, and so they're in. Like that.
So they're in. Yeah.
There's a lot of teams in the basketball tournament every March that aren't one of the 64 best teams in the country, but they won their tournament, so they get in. Like that's
NC State last year. NC State last year, great example. They were going to fire their coach, and then he took them to the Final Four, and then they had to give him a contract extension. That's how that works.
That's that was a time. Let's talk about this a little bit. So we got SMU as the 11 seed. They're heading to Happy Valley. They're going to play the 6 seed Penn State. That is December 21st at I guess noon. I don't know if these are in Central or Eastern, what I'm looking at, but I think that's at noon on TNT and HBO Max. And then Clemson, the 12 seed, they're headed to Austin to take on the number 5 seed Texas Longhorns. That is also on the 21st. That's at 4 o'clock on TNT and Max that day. I don't like this matchup for Clemson. I really don't. I will say, we had a good comment here a little bit ago. Who was it? It
was Will Secor.
Will Secor?
Yeah. I'll find it.
Where was it? He made the comment basically like, here. No, it was Woke Furby. Texas might actually be a nice matchup for Clemson because the Texas defense is so strong they can just ruin everyone's run game. But Clemson has no run game anyways. It's like trying to mind control someone who's kind of empty-headed. Like, you just can't do it, right? Like, there's nothing to control there.
Yeah.
I don't like that matchup for Clemson at all. Texas's offense seems to be a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation of like, what kind of game are they having? And either they're going to just roll you or they're going to struggle to get out of second gear at any given point. And so maybe Clemson's defense will be able to do enough to kind of keep that game under control. Obviously, we'll come back with a more thorough preview of this, but just initial reactions, Texas an 11-point favorite. That's the biggest spread of these first-round games. I lean Texas. I'd lay those points, and I think they might be able to just smoke Clemson in that spot.
Real fast. Will Secor. Yeah, Woke Furby has real analysis. I'm just shooting from the hip with a rye old-fashioned. Attaboy. Attaboy.
Welcome to the club.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Texas opened as a 10.5-point favorite. It's up to 11. It seems like a lot of points, but I do have concerns about Clemson's ability to move the ball on Texas, and I have concerns about Clemson getting consistent stops against Texas' offense, depending on what version of that offense shows up that day, to your point. So, on paper, don't feel fantastic about it. I feel a bit better about SMU's chances against Penn State.
I would agree.
A bit better there. Let's see what this opened at real quick. Okay, so this opened at Penn State minus 8.5. It has stayed there through the afternoon today. So obviously plenty of time to bet that game.
Yeah.
I feel a bit better. Here about SMU. Number one, I think SMU's defense has been good enough this year where I think that they can give Penn State some issues. I am not 100% sold on the whole Drew Aller experience. I'm just not. He's been better this year than he has been, right? I think certainly better this year than last. He played pretty well last night against Oregon in the conference title game. The issue was that his 2 interceptions ended up being pretty big in the outcome. This offense can score, right? But they're doing it with basically just Tyler Warren. I mean, Singleton's a good player too, but it's basically just been Singleton and Tyler Warren, and that's been about it. That's about all they got.
So you say this offense can score. Can they? Are we sure? Because that was kind of my handicap going into that game last night was I don't think they're going to be able to really move the ball on Oregon's defense. I was stunned when they put up 35 points. Like I did not.
Yeah.
That was not in my bingo card.
Yeah. I think that SMU can cause Penn State some issues.
I agree.
I think that obviously Tyler Warren is a matchup nightmare, but if you figure out a way to make his life at least a little bit difficult, and you can bottle up the Penn State run game, which I think SMU is capable of doing. By the way, Penn State, they ran for almost 300 yards last night. They are not that good of a running team. I mean, that was very surprising. And Kyle Nicky's a good OC, probably going to get a head coaching job somewhere this cycle maybe. Yeah, that was quite the performance by Penn State's rushing attack, but I don't know. That seemed like just a matchup thing, like they had something cooking. I don't know if they can. I don't think 300 yards is repeatable based on what we've seen from them this year. I feel a lot better about SMU's chances here because of what they present on offense, and they can give Penn State some issues defensively. This might be a popular upset pick, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. No, I think both sides of the ball. Yeah, like I think Penn State's offense can be had, and SMU's defense, I think, capable of causing a couple issues that way. And SMU just seems like they're going to find a way to score against most anybody that they play. And I did note a handful of times in that game last night, like, man, I don't know what Rhett Lashley does, but he just has a way of scheming a dude wide open here and there, right? Like,
yeah.
There will be a play a few times a game for SMU where somebody is just wide ass open, either for a big chunk play or potentially for a score. So, and I think you can get away with a couple of those against the Penn State defense. Like it's a good defense, but it's not impenetrable. So,
right.
I'm with you that I like SMU's chances in that game. I don't think they should be favored, but
no.
But I don't think this is you only win 1 or 2 out of 10. I think they got a shot here. So we'll see.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll come back and break it down, give the full preview and all that. But I agree. Penn State should be favored, better team for sure. All that good stuff. Not an impossible situation matchup wise.
Yeah. Winner of that game goes to the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Eve. They're going to play Boise State, the 3 seed. If SMU can get to the Fiesta Bowl, hey, anything's possible, man. Like that's not an impenetrable Boise State team either.
Yep, Boise does some stuff in the Fiesta Bowl also in their history. They do some fun stuff in the Fiesta Bowl. Shout out Jared Sabransky and Ian Johnson and proposing to his girlfriend. Hopefully they're still married.
Man, that was a good moment.
Yeah,
they had a good game against, was it TCU in the Fiesta Bowl too? Like early 2010s, I think. Was that when the 1 year that TCU was in the Big East or whatever? Like, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, for a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Winner of Texas Clemson, by the way, in the Peach Bowl. That's on New Year's Day at 1:00. They'll take on the 4 seed Arizona State. And, buddy, if Clemson's in that game, that's a home game for Clemson. Okay. Arizona State, I don't think is traveling to Atlanta with a heavy contingent there. So,
yeah.
And by the way, either of those teams getting into that game, yeah, sure. Like either one of those could potentially upset or just beat Arizona State and make the semifinal. That's on the table.
Yeah, I'm with you. Arizona State's been a fun story. I love Kenny Dillingham. Scatterboo is ridiculous. All that good stuff, man. But yeah. Clemson, I feel like if they got into that game, should feel pretty good about their chances to make a semifinal.
I agree. Can I give you one other playoff take, and then we can get into the ACC's bowl lineup?
Sure.
If Notre Dame beats Indiana and goes to the Sugar Bowl to play Georgia,
they'll be favored against Georgia, maybe.
I think that's a
not
nightmare
a crazy take,
matchup
right?
for Georgia. No, yeah, like that's an awful matchup for Georgia, and what Notre Dame does on both sides of the ball and what Georgia does on both sides of the ball. I don't think that's a crazy take at all that Notre Dame might be favored there. That's an awful matchup for Georgia.
This might seem like a homer take, because everybody knows I like Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame could make a run to a title game.
They could. Yeah, you look at the bracket and who they got on their end. Like, there ain't a team on there that they can't beat, I don't think.
I would not have loved the matchup for Georgia against Notre Dame. And again, you got to get past a very well coached and good Indiana team.
Mm-hmm.
It's at home. It's at home, and that'll be great.
Yeah, not taking that for granted. That's for
Do
sure.
not take that. I don't mean to gloss over that, because that's not going to be an easy game for Notre Dame. I think they're better. I think they should win. Not going to be an easy game. But if you get to that matchup against Georgia, even if Georgia had Carson Beck, I would feel pretty good about that matchup for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Just with the way they're playing defense this year. That's why I like Notre Dame to beat Indiana, by the way. The way they're playing defense this year. The defense is ridiculous.
They're playing the trenches on both sides of the ball. That's got to be top 3 in the country, both offensive line and defensive line.
A key difference from the last time they were in the college football playoff is how good they are in the trenches now.
Mm-hmm.
They are what I would like to call SEC good in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And that's a key difference. That's why the Northern Illinois game is baffling. It's baffling looking back on it. It's unbelievably baffling.
Yeah.
But
you got Sunday guys in the trenches on both sides of the ball, basically.
Yes. Yeah, not just on the O-line, which is how it used to be. But yeah. Yeah, I like Notre Dame against Indiana. I like Notre Dame against Georgia. I like Notre Dame against whoever comes out of SMU, Penn State, Boise State. I would like Notre Dame in any of those matchups. The teams that I don't like Notre Dame going up against are on the other side of the bracket. It's
Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee, Arizona State. Texas.
Yeah, it's the Texas, the Oregons, the Tennessees, the Ohio States of the world. Arizona State's plucky and annoying. I think Notre Dame would be favored there, but I'm not sure they're favored against. They might be favored against Tennessee. I'm not sure they're favored. I don't think they're favored against Ohio State. I think Oregon's going to win the title. So, yeah, we'll see. It'll be fun. The top half of the bracket's interesting. I was anti-expansion, as you know. At least to 12. I was anti-expansion to 12. I thought 8 should have been the number.
Yeah.
It's here. Let's embrace it, right?
Yeah.
Nothing we can do about it now. Let's have a nice couple weeks. Enjoy ourselves.
Yeah. I'm with you. I hated the expansion stuff, and I didn't think it was good or right, and especially all the conference realignment stuff it resulted in and all that stuff. And yet I'll probably be watching basically every one of these games, and excited to watch them. So that's why they did it, right?
That's why they did it. Yep. I am my own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Turns out.
That's right.
Song about that.
Yeah. Pretty good. Anything else you want to talk bowl lineup?
Yeah, can we actually skip bowl lineup for just a second and talk North Carolina coaching search, because we have a piece of relevant information here.
Ruh-roh. Let's do that.
John Sumrall is staying at Tulane.
Not surprising. And that was, as I was thinking about this an hour ago, my thought was Tulane played 48 hours ago. If John Sumrall were going to North Carolina, wouldn't we have heard something by now? If that was happening, what are we waiting for?
Right. Really, anywhere, because Thamel had it first and just basically said Sumrall's informed Tulane officials he's not pursuing any of the open jobs this cycle. He's been a name of interest in several open P4 jobs, and I told you this point on our last podcast, and this is from Pat Forty, my colleague. John Sumrall taking his name out of consideration for other current open jobs after increased commitment from Tulane to building the program. He's been in the mix both at North Carolina and West Virginia. So obviously we're talking about the North Carolina coaching search, so that's an important piece of information. But to your point, if he was going to Carolina, it would have been done already.
Yeah. Yep. I was listening to Split Zone Duo. They had a little eyes list update that Godfrey and Richard like to do. I was listening to that here a little bit ago, and they mentioned that I think Tulane has more NIL money going around the program than North Carolina does, which, yikes, North Carolina. They've talked a lot about, they think that there might be 4 or 5 open SEC jobs next year, and Summerall's probably holding out for one of those that just might be a better long-term situation for him, a better opportunity to build something, etc. This continues to be a little bit of a weird, seemingly kind of directionless coaching search. I mean, the most smoke that I've seen from anything is Bill Belichick. And
Yeah.
I've got a guy on the ground in Chapel Hill who was telling me earlier today that Belichick is like happening. Like that's the hire. And I'll believe it when I see him at the intro press conference. I just, that hire in so many ways does not make any sense to me.
No.
And I really can't help but feel like, however bad I feel like that hire is, it gets that much worse when we're 3 or 4 weeks in and all of a sudden the Jets come calling. And now Belichick's going up to New York to be the Jets head coach. And Carolina's stuck in mid-January starting from square one because, like, what are we doing here?
You know who they should call in that case?
Mac Brown?
Oh, I was going to say Manny Diaz. I mean, Manny Diaz already has the, yeah. That would be pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interested to see what Carolina does.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do here.
I don't know. I thought maybe they'd be interested in Tony Gibson. Tony Gibson's going to Marshall. That's NC State's defensive coordinator, of course, going to Marshall. You have
good hire by
Charles.
Marshall, I think.
I think so. They ran Huff out of town for some reason, so he's going to Southern Miss.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Weird. Coaches don't always get along with athletic directors. It happens, but
yeah,
I don't. I think the Belichick stuff is like halfway legitimate. Like, I think that Belichick's interested in coaching. I don't know if he's like 100% interested in college coaching. I think it's something that's intriguing him because the college game is looking a lot like the pro game now.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does just genuinely want to coach, right? So I think that lends some credence to it. I just don't know. When you let Mac Brown go, aren't you trying to go younger? Or is it just like, this is going stale, this is going stale?
I mean, Belichick is younger than Mac Brown.
By a year.
No, less than that. It's like a matter of months, basically. But yeah, he's younger.
But like, aren't you going to go with something a little bit more proven, like at the college level? If you're going to fire Mac Brown, because you're trying to get something more out of this?
I would think so. Yeah.
I don't know.
Has Belichick ever coached in college? Or what? He was like, what, at Navy in like the 70s or something? Like
as an assistant? His
see,
dad was much more involved with the college game than he was.
Mm-hmm. He
I don't know.
was... No, I don't even have anything... I mean, he's from Annapolis, but
yeah.
Wikipedia is not saying anything about him ever having even been an assistant in college, going back to his first role as special assistant for the Baltimore Colts in 1975. So, yeah, I don't understand that at all. And I understand that the college game is becoming a little bit more akin to the pro game in the sense of, you know, how you compile rosters and that kind of thing. But like, it ain't full on the pro game just yet. And I mean, you still got to kind of pound the pavement a little bit in recruiting. And there's a lot of politics within any university, much less North Carolina, that you'd have to be kind of working through and dealing with. And I mean, maybe he is a guy that can kind of navigate those internal politics to some degree. Like that's
dealt with
fine.
Robert Kraft. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So if that's where they go, I just want to be on the record right now. I don't get that. That's not what I would be doing, but you know, who the hell knows? And I really expect this to go in a different direction. I don't have any decent sense of like what that direction would be at this point.
Yeah. Maybe Coddle Nicky, but he's also in play at West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted Summerall. They wanted Summerall. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's of informed knowledge. Like they wanted Summerall. I didn't think he would take this one though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He's not taking any of these.
Well, and the other piece here is that if you're North Carolina, you got to figure this out like now. Like you've got the portal opening and you've got stuff is happening here. Like things are starting to move and you can't just, you don't have some luxury of just being able to sit around and take your time and, really be, what am I thinking of? I mean, I don't want to say that you can't be meticulous, but like, you got to work with some urgency here, basically is what I'm saying, because every day that goes past, it gets a harder and harder job trying to maintain whatever roster quality that Mac has built. And it becomes a deeper and deeper hole that you're digging out of trying to rebuild, basically.
Yeah.
So you got to move on this if you're Carolina.
Soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A mess.
You think it's this week? It's got to be, right?
It's got to be this week. Yeah, got to be.
I'd have to think so. We'll find out. Anything else on Carolina?
No. Good.
I will say, and Dennis makes a good point, just go straight to his son if you're going to hire him. Now, that's a thought. Is his son Steve Belichick? He was the defensive coordinator at Washington this year.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe you hire him full-time, and then, like, Bill is his defensive coordinator and then can just, like, leave without a problem when, I don't know. That's me really trying to twist something up.
It's college football. This stuff happens.
Yeah. And then our guy Joe from Louisville says that Summerall's going to be Kentucky's next head coach, whenever that is, that he was a 3-year letterman at linebacker there 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the same thing about Neil Brown. I thought wasn't Neil Brown was a Kentucky alumnus, and that was part of the reason I think his name was thrown out of the Louisville search. Was there was some skepticism within the Louisville booster corps that he might be like a sleeper agent or something to that effect of trying to work on Kentucky's behalf. But yeah, I mean I think he'll end up in one of those SEC jobs. I don't really know which one, and we'll have to see. It seems a little bit like a Billy Napier situation that we had a few years ago.
He may love Kentucky, but if a better one comes open, he might take the better one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Nope.
Bowl lineup?
Bowl lineup.
Let's do that. The ACC's bowl lineup officially announced today. I am trying to pull it all up on ESPN, but their schedule thing is...
just go to...
let's see.
I got something better for you. I just dropped it in the chat.
Oh, hello.
There you go.
What we got? This is great.
Yeah, it's nice. This is very nice. Thank you, ACC.
Yeah. Shout out to the ACC. They did one thing right here. As an annual reminder, the ACC's bowl tie-ins suck.
They do. There's something called the Game Above Sports Bowl. I found out this afternoon.
Yeah, I think Little Caesars ran out of money for sponsoring that one, but
okay, is that what that was?
Yeah, the Motor City Bowl, basically.
All right, thank you. I need some clarification on what that used to be.
Yeah, it took me a minute too when that came out. So. As mentioned, the 2 college football playoff participants, SMU playing at Penn State in Happy Valley and Clemson playing at Texas in Austin. And then, Mike, the bowl lineup is as follows. The Cal Golden Bears are going to be playing in the LA Bowl, the Los Angeles Bowl, hosted by Gronk, taking on the number 24 UNLV Running Rebels. That is on December 18th at 9 o'clock on ESPN. And then we wait like a week after that. And Pitt on December 26th, day after Christmas, they're going to be playing in the, as you mentioned, the Game Above Sports Bowl. Sure. That's the Motor City Bowl, basically, in Detroit. That is at 2 o'clock on ESPN against Toledo. Lay 'em with Pitt. I don't know what Pitt's favorite
lay
there,
'em.
but
Lay 'em. Jesus.
Lay 'em.
Yeah, lay 'em, dude.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
On December 27th at 3:30 on ESPN is the Birmingham Bowl that features Georgia Tech. My Yellow Jackets taking on the Vanderbilt Commodores because nothing can ever be easy.
Fun one.
Yeah, I think I saw someone said Tech -2, which don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Who knows what either of those teams? Who cares about which one cares or doesn't, or who knows?
Yeah.
December 27th, after that game, it is the DirecTV Holiday Bowl. It features the number 21 Syracuse Orange taking on the Washington State Cougars. Again, December 27th, 8 p.m. on Fox. The Fenway Bowl, the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, North Carolina taking on the UConn Huskies. December 28th at 11 a.m. on ESPN. Who wants to be there less?
Is Jim Mora? Is Jim Mora even going to be coaching at UConn in that bowl game? Is he going? He might be in another job.
Say, is he going somewhere? I don't know.
Maybe.
Is he going to be coaching North Carolina in that game? Stranger things have happened, right?
Didn't something like that happen a couple of years ago?
Yeah, to Louisville when Scott Satterfield got hired by Cincinnati, and then they played him in a bowl game. Yeah, that was fun.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I knew.
1 hour later on ABC on December the 28th, the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. So we're playing at the Red Sox Stadium and we're playing at the Yankee Stadium within an hour of each other on December 28th. And
neither
Boston College.
Neither one of them will involve Juan Soto.
Yeah,
so we found out this evening.
Busy in Queens. Boston College taking on Nebraska in that game. That's an interesting matchup to me. Still on the 28th, the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando. This is the number 13 Miami Hurricanes taking on the number 18 Iowa State Cyclones. That's 3:30 on ABC. Still on the 28th, the Go Bowling Military Bowl, the NC State Wolfpack taking on the East Carolina Pirates. That is at 5:45 on ESPN. So we got 4 ACC bowl games on one day, so that'll be some good watching.
Yep.
New Year's Eve, 2 p.m. on CBS. It is the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Louisville taking on the Washington Huskies. And then on January the 2nd, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, 7:30 on ESPN, as Duke taking on the number 14 Ole Miss Rebels. And then finally, Mike, on January the 3rd, did I say January 2nd or December 2nd for the other one?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
You're good. Yep.
January 3rd, finally closing out the ACC's bowl season on the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Your Virginia Tech Hokies taking on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, 7:30 on ESPN. It's been a number of years now that I'm at a little bit of a loss of how we determine which ACC team goes to which bowl game, most of which are crappy.
Yeah.
I don't really know how this whole lineup kind of came to be, but sounds like some entertaining games for me over the holiday season.
I think having 2 ACC teams in the college football playoff probably had a little bit to do with Virginia Tech ending up in the Mayo Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
That was a little bit surprising. Louisville randomly ending up in the Sun Bowl.
Sure.
Odd. Why is 6-6 Virginia Tech in the Mayo Bowl and Louisville in the Sun Bowl after going
Georgia
8-4?
Tech in the Birmingham Bowl?
And Georgia Tech in the Birmingham Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why isn't Georgia Tech?
I think the Mayo Bowl,
any of the other ones.
Look, this is a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but the Georgia Tech fan base, there's more than just me, kind of believes that the Mayo Bowl has something against Georgia Tech. And this goes back to when it was it the Pop-Tarts Bowl or something before?
The Belk Bowl.
The Belk Bowl. Paul Johnson's final year before retiring, and they got relegated to the Motor City Bowl where they got kind of stomped by Minnesota. That really felt like that should have been Georgia Tech Auburn in that Belk Bowl, and they ended up passing up Georgia Tech. And there's been a couple times since then that they've had the opportunity to bring in the Jackets, and they do not. And I don't know what to make of that, but everyone on my end of the team fandom spectrum seems to kind of believe this. So maybe that came into play here again. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Well, we can go with that. There have been crazier things that have happened.
Yeah. Again, not a lot of rhyme or reason to this. And I mean, I've mentioned this on Twitter. Like in this post college or post conference realignment era, I don't really know how this whole bowl thing is going to continue to work. Like, it seems like we're diluting it more and more. We've got, what is it? The Alamo Bowl has a conference game being played. It's like Colorado
because of
and
old Pac-12 tie-ins that still exist for some reason.
Yeah, because we couldn't fix that. It's all about the playoff, Mike. And so it's all dumb. It's all really dumb. So, yay. Go bowl season.
Yeah. We'll enjoy it. We'll try to enjoy it.
I'll enjoy it. Anything else on these bowls before we're going to obviously come back and do full previews on these in the next couple weeks. So keep it tuned here.
I mean, we got some coaching contract stuff we can hit on very quickly if you want, like 2 things.
Yeah. I'll do a couple quick things here. Number one, I'm getting the spinning rainbow of death on the Mac.
Oh, okay. Well, we can end it here then.
If you want to pull it up. We found out earlier this week, there was a story that came out. So we had talked about in our previous episode, like it really felt like Virginia was going to be making some sort of moves on their coordinators, and that, I mean, you can't run the same staff back next year that you ran out this year and have been running out for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And then we found out earlier this week, Virginia quietly extended both of their coordinators' contracts earlier in the season. I don't know what is going on in Charlottesville with this program, but it doesn't seem like there is a lot of urgency. Again, I'll use that word again. I don't see a lot of urgency coming out of Charlottesville with the way that they are trying to push forward to a successful program. I'm not seeing it, Mike. This is a really weird move, and I was really caught off guard when I saw that. I was like, that can't be right.
I don't want to dive too deep into this, only because I don't really get it. Like, there was no reason to, like, why did Des Kitchings get a $600,000 extension for what has he done in the first 3 years of this tenure, or I guess in the first 2.5 years of this tenure when he was given the extension, to warrant that? I don't get it.
No idea. I got no clue. And now
I simply don't understand.
Tony Muskett was aging out, and then you kind of ran off Anthony Calandria, and it doesn't feel like, and we've talked about it again, we kind of expected Virginia to struggle to make a bowl game this year because of strength of schedule, and especially the back 2/3 of that schedule was pretty brutal. But as mentioned, I'm not, if I'm a Virginia fan, I'm not upset that they lost all those games. I'm upset that basically none of them were competitive. Like, you weren't even close on, I think, 5 out of the 7 losses this year. And at that point, it's hard to say that, well, we're close and we're building towards something. No, you're not. You're getting smoked week after week. Like, it's okay to make changes. I don't understand this attachment that I guess Tony Elliott has here. This was a weird move to me. And I think a lot of the Virginia fans we have in the comments would agree with that.
Weird move. Don't get it. We'll see, man. Like, we'll see. Carla's contract is up in a few months, and just see what happens.
That's an extension I would be surprised by, frankly.
That's a sentence I've used before, just not in these terms, That's what I'd say.
Damn it. You're right. Fair enough. All right. Anything else on Virginia there? Just kind of a quick note.
I think this is the final straw for a lot of UVA fans, like our guy Devin Hamilton.
Yeah. People seem to be out on this whole Tony Elliott tenure, and I mean, between you're going to have to figure out some replacement for Tony Elliott here sooner than later. Probably means finding a replacement for Carla Williams. So it might just mean that you're a year away from like a pretty hard reset on what we're doing here. And
right.
It could be dangerous. You never know what you're going to get when you go through these processes, but in some cases it works better than others. I know one case where it worked pretty well.
What a transition that was.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. We found out earlier in the week also that Brent Key given a 5-year contract extension. I think he's under contract now through 2029. He got a pay raise. Jay Batt, the athletic director who hired him, also got an extension and a pay raise, as he had been kind of somewhat courted by, I think, South Carolina and a couple others recently. But I mean, I put this out on Twitter as well. Like, I thought that this was a good acknowledgement that Brent Key was on a prove it deal when he was hired. And through 2 years, he has proven it that he is building up this program year over year. I think they're improving the roster year over year. He has improved the coaching staff year over year. They are building towards something, and I think this is a good acknowledgement of that. That he goes from about the lowest paid coach among the power conferences to much more in line with the average, if not even a little bit above average. Between extending out the athletic director, I thought maybe the most important thing here was that this shows that Angel Cabrera, the president at Georgia Tech, is putting his money where his mouth is, that he is committed to athletics. And he put out he's got a monthly newsletter that he puts out anyways to alumni and such, and talks about all sorts of things in there. But the most recent one he put out came after the NC State win on that Thursday night. And he basically called out the importance of athletics to a healthy university, basically, that this is part of your marketing arm. This keeps alumni feeling connected to the school, those kinds of things. And it's very clear that he gets it in a way that Bud Peterson maybe didn't before him. And I think maybe even more so than Wayne Clough did, who before Bud, I mean, Clough was good. But I don't know that he was as good as Cabrera has been for the athletic program. So it's a guy he's an alumnus of Georgia Tech, and he clearly gets it. And I think that's going to pay dividends as Georgia Tech, basically, as we've talked about, has kind of cheaped out over the last 15 years or so. But it sure seems like they're willing to invest and believe that those investments are going to pay off. And I think you're seeing the fruits of some of that on the field already.
I mean, they needed to give him an extension. I don't think any school is really like coming after Brent Key at this juncture, but you want to kind of get out ahead of that, right? Give him that contract extension. Like you said at the top, it's like, it's just it's a nod to what he's done. He ended up being the result of an imperfect search, and he ends up being the right guy for Georgia Tech. And if he starts winning games against like 5 and 6 win ACC teams and beating like, I don't want to say a bad team from the MAC, but not exactly a powerhouse program, even though we love our Falcons, start winning those games.
Yep.
And like I said, I said it on the recap for the Georgia game. Not many coaches I'm taking in college football as an underdog over Brent Key.
Yeah.
And if I'm a multi-score underdog against the spread, yeah, give me Brent Key.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. And they have, I mean, again, they've shown the ability to be a giant killer and also to lose a game that they shouldn't. But hopefully you left that in year one, and in year two, I don't know that there's any games that they lost to a team that they shouldn't have necessarily lost to, right? That, as mentioned before, I mean, all 5 of their losses are bowl eligible teams. I think most of them won at least 8 games. So
yeah,
hard to feel ashamed about losing any of those games in particular. Now, again, you can get into the how and such, and that's a different discussion. But just on the surface, yeah, you didn't have the embarrassing loss on your resume.
No, they always, at the very least, look well prepared.
Yeah.
This year, I thought.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. All I got on that, Mike. Anything else?
I think we're good, man.
I think we're good. Anything else on the recap? Or should we kind of talk schedule moving forward?
No, I think we covered everything.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we should.
Only had one game to recap. It took us an hour and 10 minutes, so that's, par for the course. But we're going to get out of here. But Mike, as mentioned in the past, I mean, this is around the time that we have taken a little bit of a break. I don't know that that's the intent at this point. I think the intent is to kind of keep moving, keep the momentum going. As a reminder, if you're in the comments tonight, first of all, really appreciate you joining us. It's been a good night in the chat again. We've had a few of those lately. Appreciate all the people with us. Please hit the subscribe button if you have not already. That does more for us than you know. We'd appreciate that. We are working our way towards 550 subscribers, hoping to get there by the end of bowl season. Would really, really appreciate the people helping us out with that. we're going to be back. We're going to probably preview the two playoff games and then the Cal game, which is what was that again? It was on the 18th. So it's like a solid week before all the other games. So we'll come back. We'll preview those games. We'll check in on the North Carolina situation. Then we'll come back and preview all the other bowl games, maybe in one or maybe two episodes. We'll have to see and kind of figure that out as we go. But plenty of content still coming your way. We've got some team kind of season postmortems coming. A couple teams that didn't make bowl games that we want to go ahead and get those out of the way while it's still fresh in mind. So those will be coming out as well. So we've got a lot of things still coming your way, even though the season is over, Mike. We're going to try to make this a busy, at least first few months of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, until everybody starts traveling for the summer, we're going to try to try to keep things moving. You know, we've had discussions about this and making this more of a year-long outlet versus going hard from July until February, making the other 4 months of the year like legitimate content producing months for us. And we have kids, and that throws a wrench in it. I had a kid a couple of years ago. You've added a couple to the fold as well, in addition to Charlie. It's just when you have multiple kids and all this stuff off season, we all start traveling. Stuff gets hectic. But
I've got one full-time job. You've got two full-time jobs. Like
it's busy. Stuff's busy.
Easy to not find time for your hobbies at times.
Right. So
being an adult is awesome, is what I'm saying.
We'll do what we can. We have a content plan we feel good about. We think we have a schedule to execute against it that makes sense, that won't completely drain us in a way that 2 podcasts a week can during the regular season. Even though it's been a very fun year, it can be draining. We do get tired. We record these late at night. We're happy to do it. But yeah, anyway, more content coming.
Absolutely. Keep it tuned here. YouTube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. If you're not with us here tonight, even if you never watch this show live and you only listen on your phone or whatever device you're using, just dropping in, giving us a subscribe on YouTube would really, really help. We'd appreciate that. So yeah, keep it tuned here again on YouTube or on audio. We're on iTunes or I don't know, Apple Music, whatever it is these days, Spotify, Google, YouTube Music, whatever, Amazon, all the places you go find your audio podcasts. Go find them. We're there. Hit subscribe. Give us reviews. We'd appreciate that. It's been a little while since we've had one of those. So we would appreciate that as well.
Yeah. Yep. We would. Please do that for us. Give us some review content. Yeah,
please do. We're on Twitter @FTRSJoey, @Mike McDaniel SI, @BC Podcast ACC. Please support our sponsors. Again, homefieldapparel.com, rowback.com, section103.com, all sorts of phenomenal apparel across all 3 of those sites. Holidays are coming up. You need something from at least one, if not multiple, of those sites. I wore a great Rowback polo with a great Rowback Q-zip to church this morning. Looked good. Got a couple questions. Where'd you get that? Told them there's a great promo code you can use. Go ACC20, 20% off first order. Yeah. Go do that.
We like that.
Yes, we do. Mike, we're also on the social medias.
Facebook.com/basketball conference rate review. Find most of our podcasts there. And like we said, subscribe on the YouTube. Will Sikora. I enjoy watching on YouTube because of the participation aspect. Yes. Hell yeah, Will.
Yeah. That's the fun, man.
But if you listen to us on audio, that's fine too. Keep doing that. We need it. We need the content to continue to flow and everybody to continue to listen and watch everywhere they get their podcast.
Absolutely. Appreciate the people doing that. Mike, we good?
Good.
We come back, preview some playoff games, preview some bowl games, and keep it rolling into the offseason.
2-bid ACC, baby.
2-bid league. That's our ACC. Let's go.
And Dennis 133. Just subscribe on YouTube.
Hey,
Let's
there
go,
we go,
baby.
Appreciate that. Mike, we'll talk soon.
Let's do it.
All right. Until then, for Mr. Mike McDaniel, I am Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. Shout out to the people in the chat. Appreciate you as well. We will talk to you all again very, very soon with some off-season content. Until next time, go ACC.